point. Keith, I mean, you cover, Scottish Power obviously covers a number of areas, but particularly, you've talked a lot about infrastructure recently, and you've been quite critical of Ofgem's price controls, and in fact, the pipes. If we're going to deliver all this change, the pipes and the wires and infrastructure are going to be critical. Are you seeing now what's coming out of government? How are you feeling?
So can you hear me okay? Yeah, perfect, good. So 10-point plan, fantastic, brilliant. I mean, lots of people can argue about what's in it, what's not in it, is it the right stuff, etc., etc. But what is it? As an investor, as a business, as an energy company, what is it you're looking for from the government? You look for that kind of ambition, you look for those high-level targets, you look for that direction. So the stuff about the 40 gigawatts of offshore wind, we knew it was going there anyway. The stuff around the phase out of internal combustion engines, we knew it was coming, but it's brilliant to see it documented, and we all know where we're headed or trying to get to. I suppose the word of caution around that is, once a wise old sage once said to me about 15 years ago when I started getting involved in all this stuff in the industry, which is setting targets is easy. The difficult bit is delivering. And it's been quite interesting, I think, on the back of, and maybe it's because some of it was trailed up front, but on the back of the 10-point plan announcement, it's been interesting to see how quickly the conversations flipped to, well, okay, how are we going to do it? How do we get this done? How do we get it built? How do we get it through the system? How do we make sure the regulatory process works? How do we make sure the planning process works? And those are big challenges, and it does drive you down to what a lot of people have talked about in the past, and it all sounds a bit sort of esoteric and weird and wonderful, but a systems-based approach, and it really does lend itself to that, because even if you look at the topic of offshore wind, it links to almost everything else in the 10-point plan, because if you want to electrify the heat system, you need more renewable energy from offshore wind. It links to the EV transition, because if you want all these electric cars on the road, you need to provide the power for them. It has to be renewable energy. It links to offshore wind. If you look at, as I say, almost anything in that plan, they are all completely interlinked. And at the heart of it all, there's a huge, huge big conversation about how do you shift all of this energy about, i.e. the core infrastructure of the entire sector, which is the transmission system and the distribution system. Are they fit for purpose? Can they do this? Simple answer is no, and that's not a criticism. It's just a statement of fact, because the system is changing so quickly and so rapidly. The needs going forward to hit net zero are coming at us incredibly rapidly. So the system today can't cope with what we need it to do in 2030 or 2040, and that's a fact of life. I think we do need some mindset change around all of that, though, because we do, and I've heard at least one person mention the wonderful phrase already, the phrase of anticipatory investment. And we still do have this kind of mindset in the country about, oh, are we willing to take a risk? Are we willing to anticipate where we're all going? I kind of think that mindset needs to change incredibly quickly in this country, because it's not anticipatory investment at all. We know we're phasing out internal combustion engines. We know we need 40 gigawatts of offshore wind. We know we need to decarbonize the heat system, etc., etc., etc. So let's get on and build the system capable of delivering that. This is not a risk. It's not like we're sitting here still humming and hawing and debating, is climate change real? That conversation's gone. It's not like we're still sitting debating, do we want to get to net zero by 2050? Well, we've put that in legislation. So we need to actually start acting out and behaving differently and doing things differently. And if I kind of look at the last 2 or 3 years, while all this conversation has been going on the ground, what's actually changed? And we talk about a climate emergency, and we talk about accelerating all these, all the targets, and we talk about being more ambitious. Actually, on the ground, it's difficult to see that ambition on a day-to-day basis coming through the system. And that's what we need to fix and change really, really quickly. Now, that's not me being critical, it's just stuff's moving fast. But where this does become critical and you start looking at making sure everybody's lined up, is that we really need to fix this incredibly quickly in the next couple of years. So if you want that offshore wind target by 2030, if you want that EV target by 2030, if you want to start changing the heat system by 2030, we need to make massive changes to the grid system in the next couple of years. You know, if you need new grid connections onshore and offshore, unless they are in the system in the next couple of years, they aren't going to be there by 2030. If you want the EVs, unless we make changes to the distribution system in the next couple of years, the stuff's not going to be there by 2030. So we need to up the pace and up the speed. And again, that's not me being critical of Ofgem. I'm not blaming Ofgem for all of this. You can't turn around and say, oh, well, there you go, the government are good and we're good. It's all the fault of the regulator. That's completely nonsense, and it would be a stupid argument. But, you know, and to be fair to the regulator, if I think about when we submitted, the industry submitted its plans for the next round of investment in the transmission system, there was no pandemic. It didn't exist. We hadn't heard of it. We hadn't invented it. We hadn't tried to tackle it, let alone think about vaccines. So in the period between building business plans for T2 investment and 12 days from now, when we do a final determination of T2, the world has changed. The test for the United Kingdom, and this is a test for government, a test for regulators, a test for stakeholders, and a test for the industry, is, are you adaptable, flexible, and fast enough to respond what's going on around you? And that's the concern I have. I'm not too sure as a country we are. I think an awful lot of the bodies, the frameworks, the processes we have don't react fast enough. They don't change quickly enough. They don't adapt quickly enough. And that's, I think, that's the, if you like, that's the debate you're seeing play out. You're seeing it play out in the transmission system just now. You're going to see it play out any day now as regards to the distribution system for EVs. You'll see it play out, and you're seeing it playing out now about building all the offshore wind farms and developers saying, well, for my projects now, I'm being offered a connection date of 2030. How the hell are you going to do 40 gigawatts by then if I can't build the ones I've got now by then? And it's the test for all of us, the test for the country is, can you react as quickly as you're setting your ambition?
Okay.
History would say no, but there's a big bloody opportunity for us to flip that. And just one statistic I'll give you, which relates to our company and our group. 3 days before the Prime Minister announced his 10-point plan, we announced as a group where we're going to invest 75 billion euros between now and 2025. Now, 10 billion pounds of that is coming to the United Kingdom, and 10 billion pounds is brilliant and it's good. However, over the last 5 years, our group was investing 30 to 35% of its capital in the UK. That percentage is dropping and falling every time. Why? It's not because we don't like the UK. It's not because we don't think there's lots of opportunity in the UK. The issue with the UK compared to America, compared to Spain, compared to other countries is speed, opportunity, and attractiveness. Now, every one of those is within the control of this country. And every one of those you need to fix if you want to hit all these targets. And every one of those you need to get working as one system if you want to deliver net zero. And that's the challenge we've got.